People always talk about how great Donald Trump is at like contested interviews, but like he never answers the question. That was the most direct question you could have asked. And he just literally did not even talk about it at all, bro. He just straight up was like, well, tariffs, China, we're going to deal with China. They're going to love the tariffs.
Lovely experience. It was years ago that I was here. We talked about what we were going to do, and we did just about everything we said. And if you'd like, we'll take a few questions, Bob.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Trump.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're now moving, as promised, to the question and answer portion of the program. Our four very able questioners today are H. Rajan Cohen, the Senior Chair of Sullivan and Cromwell, Sandra Gerber, Founding and Managing Partner, CEO and CIO of Hudson.
These are the real voters, you know what I'm saying? These are the most important constituencies right here, baby. The Economic Club of New York. Me.
Bay Capital.
I gotta pee.
Mr. John Paulson, founder of Paulson and Company, and Rashma Sanjani, founder and CEO of Girls Who Code. And
real America, you know? Real America. Love that populist sentiment coming out of the real Americans that we need to hear from.
Moms first. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and therefore, Raj, you have the first question.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I would like to ask about the United States economic sanctions programs. These programs have been used, as you well know, to advance our national security interests, our foreign policy objectives, but they also have economic implications. And the most recent was the program against Russia in response to their invasion of Ukraine, where for once we got the support of all our allies. So my specific question is, would you strengthen or modify any of these economic sanctions programs, particularly Russia, including the pipeline you mentioned?
Well, it's a great question. The problem with what we have with sanctions, and I was a user of sanctions, but I put them on and take them off as quickly as possible because ultimately it kills your dollar and it kills everything the dollar represents, and we have to continue to have that be the world currency. I think it's important. I think it would be losing a war. If we lost the dollar as the world currency, I think that would be the equivalent of losing a war. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. So I use sanctions very powerfully against countries that deserve it, and then I take them off. Because look, you're losing Iran, you're losing Russia. China is out there trying to get their currency to be the dominant currency, as you know better than anybody. All of these things are happening. You're losing so many countries because there's so much conflict with all of these countries that you're going to lose that, and we can't lose that. So I want to use sanctions as little as possible. One of the things that we have with tariffs is that I'll say to them, you don't honor the dollar as your world currency. Is that right? You're not going to do it? No, we're not. I said, that's okay. I'm going to put tariffs all over your product. And they're going to say, sir, we'd love to honor the dollar as the world currency. You know, tariffs, in addition to monetary and the money that we'll take in, which will be bigger than you've ever seen in this country before, gives you tremendous political power for something like that, as an example. I stopped wars with the threat of tariffs. I stopped wars with two countries that mattered a lot. A lot of people would have been killed. And I threatened tariffs coming into the United States if they don't make peace. And we made we didn't have conflicts like you have right now. We had very intelligent people. But the biggest threat you have.
If he's talking about Russia and China, then you know what's even crazier than tariffs? Sanctions, which he used quite a bit. And the irony, of course, is that the sanctions regime that Joe Biden has continued from the Trump administration, which greatly increased sanctions, has not stopped Russia from pummeling Ukraine. So, sanctions are even crazier than tariffs overall. He said he hates sanctions. Yeah, that's bullshit, by the way. He loves sanctions. What do you mean? He cooked Venezuela with the sanctions. He was the sanctions chief, dude. Look at Venezuela. Why do you think there's so many Venezuelans coming into the United States of America? Where'd they come from? Why are they escaping Venezuela? He absolutely loves sanctions and used the out of them. You missed the question. The guy is mad about sanctions hurting his dollar. I mean, I get why some people at the Economic Club of New York might be upset about it.
Is you lose that currency, and we have lost something that you'll never get back. And we can keep it if we're smart, but they use it too much, and then they just forget about it. And these countries like Russia, it's going out now and doing its own thing, and you know, they're going out bragging about how they don't need us anymore, et cetera, et cetera. The sad part about Russia is that Ukraine would have never happened if I was president, so we wouldn't really have to be talking about sanctions. But it did happen. And one of the things I'm going to do, a little bit relevant to your question, is if we win, I believe I can settle that war while I'm president-elect. Before I ever get into office, I can get that war settled and get that war stopped, because it's a horrible, horrible war. And far more people are killed in Ukraine. Far more people than you're realizing. They'll knock down this massive building, amazing, the size of these buildings, they'll knock it down. They'll say nobody was injured. No, a lot of people were killed. The real numbers are far greater than what people are looking at. So I think it's a very important thing. Sanctions have to be used very judiciously, and you can win. We have things much more powerful, actually, than sanctions. We have trade, but we cannot lose our dollar standard. Very important. Thank you very much.
Great. Sander?
Thank you, Mr. President, for all the details on your economic policy. As you alluded to, tariffs are the other side of sanctions. And given that China is our major trading partner with our largest imbalance and possibly our chief national security threat to the United States, how can we better institutionalize trade policy and national security policy to be coordinated?
So I had a great relationship with President Xi of China, really very close relationship. Now look, he likes China, I like us, so, but I don't want to sound foolish. He was my dear, dear friend. He's a tough guy, he's a fierce person. I say very smart. You know, when you say he's smart, the fake news goes crazy. He said President Xi is smart. And I say, yeah, well, he controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. He's smart. But we had a very good relationship with China until COVID. And when that came in, it was...
The assessment that you sent me literally fucking ends in 2016, chatter. The graph of sanctions usage, look, the chart that you sent me, the global sanctions database, straight up ends in 2016, which is funny because it's like, that's kind of the whole, like I was trying to make a point about how much more Donald Trump accelerated sanctions. The Washington Post one covers it quite extensively. Yeah, the Jeff Stein piece on sanctions is pretty good. Trump loves Xi, unlike you. Isn't it better for America to compete more directly with its larger rivals? Competition makes everyone better. Wait, what? I mean, sanctions are not that. I don't know why you're bringing that up now. Let's see. Of course, then you got Biden, but, you know, you got Trump going crazy and then Biden going holy moly. But that number is a little juiced and boosted because of Russia, obviously. That's why it explodes. But the jump off overall from Obama to Trump is pretty significant because he didn't do this in the midst of like, active conflict occurring between two separate foreign entities. Biden has also been god-awful on sanctions, though. Make no mistake, I'm not defending Biden's record on this at all, just so you understand. I think it's dog shit. Defend it now. Only better chance than the Biden admin. Defend it now. You have to be literally the most delusional donkey on the planet if you think that I would ever in a million years defend the Biden administration's sanctions. There are some who are somewhat understandable, but just recognize that I'm not exactly a fan of Biden either. Libs be defending other liberal failures? Yeah, you might have thought that like I'm a libtard who defends the liberal administrations all the time or some shit. I was talking about Trump having a chance to stop the war before the Biden admin. Wait, what? I don't think Trump has a chance to stop the war before the Biden administration at all. I don't know what you're talking about. The only thing Trump will do that is different than the Biden administration for sure, if we're being really real, is he'll probably offer infinitely more favorable terms to Russia. And yes, there is a higher likelihood of Russia no longer pummeling Ukraine in the same way. But that same principle exists for Israel as well, even though I don't think you can actually have more favorable terms than Biden has given. Benjamin Netanyahu just simply likes Trump more and will most likely be able to permanently annex the West Bank under the Trump administration. So I guess that's one aspect that could cause a temporary halt in hostilities to make it seem like Donald Trump ended the war in Gaza, ended the genocide in Gaza, while simultaneously, once again, just like the Trump administration did, greatly accelerate the likelihood of a permanent annexation, permanent occupation worsening for the people of Palestine under the Trump leadership. Now, Kamala would do the same. Considering that genocide is the worst thing you can do to an entire population, there is not really much of a distinction here. But no, I don't think that Kamala Harris would... I don't think that Kamala Harris would be an advocate for the permanent annexation of the West Bank, whereas Trump, I do believe, would be, for the record. Not that it matters in the current calculation, because the current calculation is genocide. Yeah, sure, bud. I mean, look no further than prior liberal administrations, guys. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? This is not a defense of like Kamala Harris, even a little bit. My analysis is never going to... My analysis is not going to be different here, okay? I'm always going to be honest with you. I'm even coming to the recognition here that, like, in order to, like, facilitate an immediate ceasefire, Benjamin Netanyahu might play ball with Donald Trump with all of the extra amenities that Trump will offer Benjamin Netanyahu down the line, potentially, over Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is unique in terms of, like, how much of a dick rider he has been for Israel in terms of former liberal administrations. If you're going to look at this seriously, Barack Obama was technically less favorable to Israel than even other liberal administrations overall. They've still played the same song and dance all the way from Bill Clinton onward, in terms of like defending Israel, lying at the behest of Israel, changing the public sentiment in an effort to make it seem like Israel wasn't always the ones ruining negotiations, and it was actually the Palestinians that were ruining the negotiations, blah, blah, blah. But overall, there are certain things that that no liberal nor prior Republican administrations ever did. Recognition for the permanent annexation of Syrian territory in Golan Heights. Trump did that, okay? Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as Israeli territory symbolically. No prior administration did that until Donald Trump. There has not been a single comment from the administration regarding Israel sieging the West Bank except from John Kirby and Matt Miller. Yes, I'm telling you that Joseph Robinette Brandon, San Marino won a competitive game. What? Why are what the fuck is a San Marino? What? Your political commentary is so useful and good for the lib left, but lack of a movement from our party is beginning to leave the biggest sour taste in my mouth. Why can't the lib left no longer assemble en masse and fill all of Washington in the streets for what is necessary in our country? I don't know. I mean, they do that, and the media barely covers it. They did that for Palestine, and it didn't work. All right, let's go.
A whole different ballgame as far as I was concerned. You know, we made a great China trade deal, maybe better than the USMCA, and I'd never talk about it because what happened with COVID for the whole world, $60 trillion and, you know, deaths, 70 million, 60, nobody even knows how many deaths. And it all came out of Wuhan. So it changed my relationship. But I think I'll have a great relationship with China. I had one before. And they respected us, but they respected us because they no longer thought we were fools. They used to think we were fools because we built China. They would take over $500 billion a year and use it for their military and other things. And we got nothing out of that. We got some cheap product. You can buy 19 pencils instead of 2. Who the hell cares? You can buy 16 dolls for your daughter instead of 2 nice dolls. And we got very little out of that relationship. They got a tremendous military power, and they still have it today. So, but I believe we will have a very good relationship with China and with a lot of other countries that we're not getting along with too well today. And things are going to straighten out. We're going to get them straightened out very quickly. Very important that we get along with the rest of the world. You know, we have things today called nuclear weapons. I rebuilt our whole military, including our nuclear capability. And so I got very familiar with it. And, you know, I say this often because I had an uncle who was the longest serving, I believe the longest serving, I was told that by MIT, but he was there 39, I guess, or 41 years, longest serving professor in the history of MIT, and nuclear was something he knew a lot about. And we used to talk about it. I'd say, Uncle John, there's no way. He was telling me about this incredible power that was being unleashed potentially. And I say, Uncle John, you could never. And you know what? He was very modest, because I've seen the destructive capability, and this world is going to have to get along, because if that's ever unleashed, we already have too many countries that have at least remnants of it, some of it, but probably 5 countries if you think. And Kim Jong-un, when I went to the White House after winning in 2016, I sat with President Obama, which is a ritual, and you sit and you talk. And I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea is the biggest problem. I don't think it's solvable. I said, have you tried calling him or talking to him? And actually, the answer was yes, and he wasn't responded to. But I did, and we were very safe. It started off a little rocky, if you remember. Little Rocket Man, I called him, and he called me things too. He's got a red button on his desk. I said, I have a bigger red button, and my red button works. I said, and then it started getting a little nicer, and then one day I got a call that they'd like to meet, and it was a great thing. We had a great meeting. We had 2 meetings, actually 2 great meetings, summits, and we had no problem with them. Now they have a problem because they're not liking this administration. They don't respect this administration at all. So we have to get along. We have to get along. We can't have World War III. You're going to end up in World War III, just like you should have never had Russia go in. It would have never happened if a competent person led us.
Peaceful dove. Peace through strength. Still signaling that he is a peaceful guy. A lot of dummies will believe him.
It would have never happened. He led them into it. And I'm not blaming Biden. But you know what? What he was saying was exactly the wrong thing. I said, we're going to have an invasion because of a lot of the rhetoric. It was stupid rhetoric. But it would have never happened, not only for that reason. Oil was down low. You know, oil was almost at $100 a barrel. So Putin is one of the only people. I mean, nothing's easy in life. But Putin at $100 a barrel, war works. At $40 a barrel, it didn't work at all. So we're going to get back to a intelligently run place, a place where other countries aren't using the word nuclear. That word was never talked about because I knew the power of it. And I talked to Putin about it. I talked to President Xi about it. I think we were going to do, you remember the talk where we were going to reduce nuclear capability substantially. All 3 of us, we're going to start it. We're going to reduce very substantially. And then we had the election, and after the election, they didn't talk about that or anything else, frankly. But we have to be very, very careful, because the destructive capability of nuclear, when people talk about global warming, I say the ocean is going to go down 1/100th of an inch within the next 400 years. That's not our problem. Our problem is nuclear warming, and we better be smart, and we better have smart people at the top that know how to deal, because these people don't know how to deal. Putin came out today, he endorsed Kamala, and I didn't know, was I supposed to call him up and say, thank you very much, I appreciate it. But he endorsed Kamala. I have a feeling, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say about that. I don't know if I'm insulted or he did me a favor. But we have to get along with the world. We can't have war, because the destructive capability, you can be the head of the biggest bank wherever the hell Jamie is sitting. You can be the head of the biggest bank in the world, and a couple of nukes and your bank doesn't mean a thing. You gotta get along. This is such an important job. It's a dangerous job, too. Very dangerous job. If you look at statistically, being president is very dangerous. That throbbing feeling I have. Oh, that throbbing feeling. No, it's a very dangerous job, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, bad things will happen to the world. Things like you've never seen before. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's popping off.
John Paulson behind me to your right, Mr. President.
Hi, John.
First, let me thank you for your presentation today. President Trump, in the last fiscal year, the fiscal deficit under the Biden administration was approximately $2 trillion. Under the policies you've announced, the deficit would come down from items such as increased revenues from tariffs, as well as eliminating the tax incentives for the Green New Deal. These gains would be mitigated by decreases in revenues from policies such as no tax on tips. Overall, what do you estimate will be the impact of the fiscal deficit from your policies?
Well, we just hit record highs at numbers that nobody ever thought possible. You're right, it's over $2 trillion. Nobody thought that was a number that was, I mean, you could go back 4 years, nobody thought a number like that would be possible. It's crazy, it's like, it's just horrible, actually. But yeah,
How'd that happen?
2 trillion, and I view it as profit and loss to a certain extent. A lot of people say, oh, it's trade. You know, you have many people say trade deficits don't matter. I think they matter a lot. I think they matter a lot. We're going to have tremendous growth. What I'm talking about is all about growth. The tax is relatively minor compared to the growth. We're going to make our money back on growth. We're going to also, I mean, we're going to grow like nobody's ever grown before. I think if this all works out, you're going to have the auto industry come back to America. Right now, China is building 2 auto factories in Mexico, massive auto factories. And they think they're going to make their cars in Mexico and send them back into the United States with no tax. It's not going to happen. Under this administration, it's going to happen. And they wanted to do that.
Literally, both of the admins have the exact same opinion on tariffs on Chinese-made automobiles. Like, literally, both. Straight up. China consents, Mexico consents. Is there someone you forgot to ask? No, I mean, you will, if I get a BYD, will you sign it? Yes. You will never get the Yangwang, and neither will I. And I want it really bad. I want the Yangwang U9 supercar, but I will not be able to get it because of both Joseph Robinette Brandon and Donald Trump. What is this?
During my administration, I said, if you do it, we're going to put a 200% tariff on every car, and you'll never be able to see it. There will never be one car coming across our border. And if I would have let them do it, we would have had these 2 factories. Well, now they're building massive factories, more than 2, and they're going to kill Detroit. And the head of the union, the United Auto Workers in Detroit, has done a terrible, terrible job, just a terrible job. But we're going to bring tremendous growth back. And remember, we're also taking in a certain percentage. I won't name the percentage today, but it'll be a certain tariff percentage, which will be higher than people had heard in the past. And we will be bringing in billions and billions of dollars, which will directly reduce our deficits. Okay, thank you very much. Good job you've done, by the way. Very good.
Thank you. And the final question, Resma, is to you.
Thank you. President Trump, you talked about how the increase in the price of food, gas, and rent is hurting families. But the real cost that's breaking families' backs and preventing women from participating in the workforce is childcare. Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion a year, making it one of the most urgent economic issues that is facing our country. In fact, the cost of childcare is outpacing the cost of inflation, with the majority of American families of young children spending more than 20% of their income on childcare. One thing that Democrats and Republicans have in common is that both parties talk a lot about what they're going to do to address the childcare crisis, but neither party has delivered meaningful change. If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing
Why does no one ever ask who pays the tariffs? The answer is consumers. And that's not a fun conversation to have for any administration, whether it be the Biden administration or whether it be the Trump administration. A U.S. Department of Agriculture study found the retaliatory tariffs from China during the tariffs war reduced U.S. agricultural exports by $27 billion from mid-2018 when the tariffs were imposed at the end of 2019. Trump farmers, yeah. He tried to make up for it with additional subsidies. And yes, this is a room full of multimillionaires and billionaires.
Legislation to make childcare affordable. And what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers.
Bro, people always talk about how great Donald Trump is at like contested interviews, but like, dude, he never answers the question. Like, I've never heard this man. That was the most direct question you could have asked. What are the legislative items that you seek to push for and pass if you become president in terms of dealing with skyrocketing childcare costs? And he just literally did not even talk about it at all, bro. He just straight up was like, well, tariffs, China, we're going to deal with China. They're going to love the tariffs. He never does this shit. He never responds ever. It's so frustrating. And nobody holds him to account, dude. This is a puppet show, buddy. Presidents are not elected to protect people's interests. Yes, I know that better than anybody else, okay? I know that as well as I know that there's a 3-minute ad break coming for you right now. And if you want to change that reality for yourself, you need to subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. He just like hyper focuses on one thing. He just hyper focuses on one thing and just like stays on it. Like on the debate, it was immigrants. They'd be like, yo, Mr. President, how will you deal with the war in Ukraine? Immigrants are raping our children. They're doing it. They've killed 10 million Americans last week. I'm going to ship the immigrants to Ukraine. It's like, what the f? How are you going to fix the housing crisis? Immigrants are stealing our homes. We're going to ship the immigrants out. We're going to do mass deportation.
Numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is.
It's so funny because he's a room reader and he knows what room he's in. He's like, he basically told her to shut up, bitch. I'm in the Economic Club of New York. Ain't nobody give a f about childcare in here. Shut your dumb ass up. It's time to talk about tariffs against China again. He like literally, he's just like, I'm not going to answer that question. What are you, stupid? Nobody here has an issue with what you're talking about. Yeah, talk to me again when I'm in Ohio or some shit, okay? These people don't want to hear about me spending dollars on the working poor.
Is that I just told you about. We're going to be getting in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trump. It's great that you accepted our invitation to be with us today. Thank you, Raj, Sander, John, and Reshma, for your questions. The president is now going to be leaving the building, and so we want to all stay seated while he and his team leave. But as he leaves, let's all say thank you one more time for him accepting our invitation to be here today.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you. Thank you. This is great honor.
That's a gift, by the way. Childcare is not that expensive. What a wonderful gift. I wonder if the Democrats will use it. Please. I mean, this is what I always say. Like, I watch the Democratic Party and the way they move, and I talk about how bad they are. And then all it takes is for me to see like 3.5 seconds of Donald Trump talking to immediately remind every single person that is in the chat that is constantly like, oh, you say Kamala Harris is going to win. Like, how do you say that? This is why. These guys are so far up their own assholes, okay? I don't think personally that there are enough like conspiratorial weirdos out there that will vote for Donald Trump, even though he's president for the past 4 years, or not for the past 4 years. Well, he was too. He was still my president. But I don't think there is enough like non-voters he can activate with the crank vote that will come out in droves in swing states and vote for him because of the RFK Tulsi Gabbard, crank vote, the crank allegiance. When he's saying shit like this, and a lot of normal voters will go, what the do you mean you don't think childcare is expensive? Let's see what the better answer is. Let's see what the better answer is.
The cost of daycare. Hayden, obviously a working family, and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
Yeah, such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier.
Remember, this is the well-read guy who's like buttoned up. He's supposed to like fix the silly arguments that Trump makes. Let's hear how he answered
for
this.
Family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare. Now, you talk about just daycare. Let's say you don't have somebody who can provide that extra set of hands. What we've got to do is actually empower people to get trained in the skills that they need for the 21st century. We've got a lot of people who love kids, who would love to take care of kids, but they can't, either because they don't have access to the education that they need, or maybe more importantly, because the state government says you're not allowed to take care of children.
Oh my God. He said we need to deregulate childcare so that we can get sex offenders to be in charge of childcare, okay? There's a lot of these people that are being held back by the nanny state that want to take care of your children, but they can't because the nanny state tells them no. Obviously, he's not talking about sex offenders there. I'm joking, but am I joking, really? Because, that's one of the regulatory mechanisms in action here. Maybe he'll deregulate that too. Folks, you know what I want to do? You know the random adults that you leave your child with for 12 hours out of the day when you're at work slaving away? I want to make sure that those guys have less regulation. I want to make sure that the entry level for a job like that, a task that requires an unimaginable amount of confidence from the family, I want to make sure that more people can join that job. Because right now, first I think, just ask your grandma to take care of the kid. And if your grandma's dead, well, skill issue. We can get the local pedophile to do it. I love the Republican Party, man. They're so fire. What do you mean? This guy just wanted to a 16-year-old. Is that even an issue? Now he can take care of your child,
Unless you have some ridiculous certification that has nothing to do with taking care of kids. So empower people to get the skills they need. Don't force every early child care specialist to go and get a 6-year college degree where they've got a whole lot of debt and Americans are much poorer because they're paying out the wazoo for daycare. Empower working families, empower people who want to do these things for a living, and that's what we got to do.
All right,
That's awesome. What a solution, dude. Deregulating the childcare industry will certainly have no unforeseeable consequences. That's cool. So JD Vance wants pedophiles to take care of your children when you're at work, slaving away. Donald Trump says childcare is not that expensive anyway. Who gives a f? And then you say, Hasan, how could you be confident that the Kamala Harris campaign is going to actually win? Literally, do you hear what they are saying? Okay? And it's not necessarily like the out of touch idiocy that you hear from this campaign. And it's more so what that out of touch idiocy represents. If this is the forward thinkers in your party, then it shows me that your instincts are bunk, okay? Just like I say the exact same shit, you are expert at twisting their words. I'm an expert at twisting their words. Donald Trump literally said, childcare is nothing in comparison to the tariffs and the money we're going to make from the tariffs. That's number one. Number two, this guy literally did say, get grandma to take care of the kid. And if grandma's not around, then, you know, we need to deregulate childcare. He said those words. What do you hear when he says those words? What's the difference between deregulating the border, though? Just like most migrants coming across the border are not rapists, most people who want to work in childcare are not pedos. I know, dumbass. I'm exaggerating in terms of the pedophile argument, okay? I even admitted that I'm obviously being hyperbolic. I'm saying deregulating an industry that requires understandable certifications because they are tasked with an incredible job taking care of another person's children for extended periods of time should have some certifications. What the are you guys saying? How do you guys not hear that and go, oh my God, that sounds like an insane thing to say? If you can't understand it for childcare because you yourself are probably a child or have not considered this at all, like what kind of confidence is required to leave your children with a goddamn adult? If you can't imagine that, then you should probably, I don't know, apply that exact same ideological principle of deregulation to something that you do know about. Maybe your workplace, for example. Maybe you can understand it that way. It's a really cool way to understand things that you cannot personally comprehend. Here, a comparable industry would be pet sitters. A chatter is correct on this. Okay? There's not a lot of certifications for pet sitting. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry can do that. Would you entrust a random stranger that you have a lot of confidence in to take care of your pets with your children?
Who can?
I mentioned we had this terrible shooting in Georgia. Right. Our prayers are with our friends in Georgia. And I've been doing town halls and interviews in public with you for all these years since you got into the political arena. And I told this audience, never before have restrictions been so tight, obviously after the assassination attempt as well. And Director Ray said the threat level has never been this bad. He said it 5 consecutive times before Congress. What is going on?
Well, it's a sick and angry world for a lot of reasons. And we're going to make it better. We're going to heal our world. We're going to get rid of all these wars that are starting all over the place because of incompetent American leadership. And we're going to make it better. You know, Viktor Orban made a statement. They said, bring Trump back and we won't have any problems. We were very strong about that. So we're going to hopefully do very well. We have an election coming up. And actually, you know, they keep saying 60, but it starts in Delaware and North Carolina and other places a lot sooner than that. So I think we're going to be very well set up to do a great job. And do we love Pennsylvania? Do we love it?
I will never get over the Viktor Orban mention. Like, dude, it's such a funny thing to say. It's his version of like, we did NATO. Like, I know that like the Republican Party through its like media apparatus has done a shit ton to hype up Viktor Orban, right? Like he's a known entity. He's not like some rando. But even then, incredibly funny to just be like there is no, like the equivalent would be, like I said, Joe Biden talking about like the leadership of Estonia. Like who gives a about Viktor Orban, man? You are benefiting him more than you are benefiting your campaign every time you mention him. Viktor Orban said I'm great.
let me ask you. Mr. President, let me ask you this. Between Thank you. This is a very tough interview. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most. So we have all of this. Now, let me talk about in 6 days, you will have probably your only opportunity to debate Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Chatter, shut the fuck up. I already ran the ad break. Don't come in here with this bullshit.
If I vote instead of George Stephanopoulos' network that I get to moderate the debate. Just saying. But you know,
I have to
ABC
say, though,
is not.
John, ABC is the worst network in terms of fairness. They had a poll where I was 17 points down a couple of days prior to the election. I was 17 points down in Wisconsin. And they do that so people don't vote because, you know, hey, I love Trump, but he's 17 points down. I'm not going to go out and vote. I was 17 points down and I won. And I called the best pollster. I said, why wouldn't they say 5 or 4 or 3? Because at 3, you go and vote. At 17, your people say, I want to vote, but, you know, I'm busy. I have other things to do. Let's go see a movie and we'll watch the results later. They are the most dishonest network, the meanest, the nastiest, but that was what I was presented with. I was presented with ABC, George Slopadopoulos, you know who he is. And he's a nasty guy. And yet, he's a nasty guy. I've had him up to here. But let me tell you, he's a very, very bad.
Dude, the Barbussies are quaking right now. I'm sorry. He's got every Deborah in the building so goddamn wet. I just heard them. They're going feral. Look.
Yet, he's a nasty guy. I've had him up to here. But let me tell you, he's a...
I love you, Mr. President. I want you to carve out my Barbussie. Marry me, Mr. President. Wow!
Very, very bad kind of a guy. But I watched his interview of Joe Biden. It was like the softest interview I've ever seen. It was softer than the CNN interview of Kamala. So, but they're very nasty. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching to see how nasty they are, how unfair they are. I agreed to do it because they wouldn't do any other network. The other thing is, her best friend is the head of the network. Her husband's best friend is married to the head of the network. And they're going to get the questions. I've already heard they're going to get the questions in advance. They even have Donna Brazile. Remember Donna Brazile? Donna Brazile, she's the real beauty. Donna Brazile, she gave Hillary Clinton the questions. You remember that? And she works for ABC, and she's at the round table talking about the debate. So we're going to watch very closely, but you're not allowed to do it. We even have a clause in the contract. You can't give them the questions, but I'm not sure it's going to help her that much, though. I think you might give her the questions and give her the answers with the questions. I'm not sure it's going to help her.
I don't know. All right, now, so unlike Kamala Harris, our time is actually up. However, we're going to let Dave McCormick ask the first question, and we're going to air that not tonight, but tomorrow night.
He always does this, you know.
I do.
Our time's up, but you know what? Let's make two.
Fighting inflation is one of our...
Donald Trump, Kamala Harris has no idea what she's doing and will cause a depression. These sitcom-ass laughs, bro, what am I hearing? Dog, what you are hearing is like real American voters, okay? Those are actual people who are going to go out and vote. What you're hearing are the American fascists, okay, the suburban warriors, the people who are ride or die, deeply invested in the MAGA cause. YouTube comments, I mean, those are ironically the people who write the YouTube comments. Let us become unburdened by what's been by voting for Trump. Trump Vance, Janet Johnson. Sorry, Harris not getting my vote. Can't afford your tax plans. Like, dude, there is 0% chance that you are going to be taxed a single penny more. You are a random username on YouTube. It's got to be a bot.
Our administration's top economic priorities.
Was it wrong to consider inflation transitory? I mean, these price spikes seem like they're going to be with us for a while.
We have to address the fact that we got to deal with the fact that folks are paying for gas, paying for groceries, and need solutions to it.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
And it's rough. Groceries, the cost of groceries has gone up. The cost of gas has gone up.
Bro, I hate this shit because it's like, the fracking shit is the same as like coal miners, but we just moved on to fracking instead. Like in key states, there's like 20,000 jobs that actually pertain to fracking, but like a million people minimum who care about it. Like if it goes away, they'll die.
And as this is all happening in the context of 2 years of a pandemic, it's one of the highest priorities actually for the president and for me.
That is called Bidenomics. That is called Bidenomics, and we are very proud of Bidenomics.
All right, we continue she's very proud of Bidenomics. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that was Kamala Harris touting her pretty radical beliefs on the economy. In her own words, according to Kamala, her values have not changed. We don't know where she stands because she's only done an interview for 16 minutes and 29 seconds spoken. So on the issue of the economy, just how many of you in this room, and you can all close your eyes so you're not looking at your neighbor, have struggled economically in the last number of years? Wow. Wow.
It's actually not that bad because, you know, conservatives for the most part are wealthier than Democrats on average. So, you know, I love that they're not even lying.
Wow. And when I started my adult life, I struggled to pay my rent. You know my jobs. I've listed them 100 times, working in the service industry and bartending and cooking and washing dishes and construction. Not McDonald's. That was a lie. And
By the way, she didn't work at McDonald's, right?
She did not. Well, there's no evidence of it.
Did she work at McDonald's? Because
so far, no evidence.
I don't think so, based on what I saw.
Here's my question. She wants to raise corporate taxes. She wants to raise small business taxes, capital gain taxes, estate taxes, the international corporate minimum tax, to the point where America won't be competitive anymore. And your tax cuts are about to...
There's nothing funnier than having a room full of hogs, some of which unironically are broke, celebrate a billionaire whose first job was being the son of a multimillionaire real estate developer, go, oh my God, oh, hell yeah, brother, you're right, she's fake, she's a phony. It's like, bro, listen, she was a cop, not the best job, okay? Not a big fan. But the idea that like you are closer to Donald Trump in terms of like your lived experience, your class interest than Kamala Harris is so stupid. Oh my God.
To expire in 2025.
It'll
what does this mean for the economy? What does it mean for everybody here struggling?
So I gave you the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country. If you let the Trump tax cuts expire, which she wants to do, she wants to terminate them. If you do that, you will suffer the biggest tax increase in history. There's never been a tax increase like it.
Wait, dog. You did that. No, that's his tax cuts that are slated to expire. Dog, oh my God. You at the time thought you would be a two-term president. You were wrong. And you literally wrote the tax proposal in a way that all of those people in that room would actually get tax hikes by 2025, except for the 1%. The top tax bracket and the corporate tax rate is permanent. Every other tax rate beyond it is not. It is slated to sunset. Problem is, he wrote it like that. God, I hate how stupid Americans are. I get really mad about the Democrats in general because like they're so close in their policies, in the hurt that they contribute to the Republican Party. But god damn, the moment that I see a room full of hogs, I literally turn into a JD Pond for permanent first world genocider, dude. Like nothing immediately snaps me out of like wanting to take care of our fellow man by just like hearing a bunch of cackling hyenas in a goddamn room advocate against their best interest, like their immediate best interest. It makes me so mad, dude. Like, hey, Hasan, have you tried not complaining? Good one, dude. You did it. Good one. I'm a political commentator, dude. This is what I'm doing, okay? I'm serious. Like, it just, all of the complaints does not equal commentary. What? Anytime someone says something, anytime someone in the chat says the dumbest thing you've ever heard, there is going to be a dumber bitch that goes, exactly. That guy is right. No matter what. Anyway, very, very frustrating stuff to see like a bunch of modern American fascists just sitting around in a room and being like, hell yeah, Mr. President, I don't want my taxes to be increases. Like it did. Okay, it did. My first chat, he calls me out, typical cringe. Yeah, well, don't say something cringe then, the good man Jack. What do you mean?
On top of which, she wants to add a lot of tax. This country will end up, and I've said this a lot, and I mean it. This country will end up in a depression if she becomes president, like 1929. This will be a 1929 depression. She has no idea what the hell she's doing.
What if unrealized capital gains taxes were implemented? What
Well,
would
she
that
wants to do that. This is where you have something, you don't even know what the value is. I tell you what, if that's going to happen, go out and open an appraisal company because you're going to make a fortune. That's about the only group that's going to make it, and accountants. It is the craziest idea. And remember this, very rich people and big international corporations, they don't have to stay in the United States. And they will be forced to leave for other countries. They can't afford to do a thing like that. They may have great wealth and no cash, and they're going to have to pay cash. Where are they going to get the cash? If they do that, the unrealized capital gain, it's been talked about for a few years by ultra-left Marxists only. Like her father's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist teacher of economics. Can you believe this? But if that happened, this country, and I think forgetting about that particular, she's got a lot of things that are just as bad. If she gets in, I think we will have a depression, 1929 style depression. That's what I think will happen to our country. Already they've set us on a path.
What about price gauging, as she calls it, or gouging?
Well, she called it gauging.
And what if they implement that and then price controls?
Yeah.
That's been tried in
many times.
The former Soviet Union, Venezuela, even in this country in the 70s, it was a disaster.
Yeah. Every time it's been tried, no matter over hundreds of years, not just over hundreds of years, price controls, you end up with no product, you end up with massive inflation, and you end up with the destruction of a country.
How does this impact? How do high interest rates impact? How does inflation?
Communist Richard Milhouse Nixon, just so you remember. Okay, you need to remember something. Did you see the shooter's mugshot? No. You need to remember something. This said this, and what's really funny about it is currently polling at 83%.
Can impact everybody that's here.
Well, they can't buy a home. They can't do anything. Your business is stopped up. You can't borrow money. And by the way, I had interest rates at 2%. Now they're 10%, but you can't get the money. You can't get the money. There's no money available.
Like, dude, what are you saying, brother? I mean, like half of these people are just clapping for no reason, okay? Oh my God, the benefits of the interest rates. Like, I mean, I guess every American is in debt, so I guess interest rates do factor into their lives. It doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of like how much more significant it will be for corporations in general. But like, how do you respond to the claims that price control doesn't work? I don't know. I mean, just say it does. It's not even price control. We already have price control. I hate this conversation. The United States of America has price control, okay? Anybody that says it doesn't does not know how agribusiness works. Oh, we literally have price control in the form of subsidies, and it still doesn't matter. Like they still farm it out regardless.
So 10% is right. You know, if you can't get the money, 10% is not the right number. It's got to be much more than that. You can't borrow money to buy a house now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
No.
We did a good campaign, but the next time we had something special. We could talk about what we did, but we never could imagine we'd have borders where 20 million people have poured into our country. Many criminals from all over the world are coming into our country. They're coming from jails, from not just South America.
I understand why corporations can't leave the U.S., but why can't super wealthy individuals with their money? I don't know if you know this, but we're the goddamn United States of America. You do realize there's a shit ton of things that the American government could do that just refuses to do it outright. Okay? And I'm not talking about like the tax havens that already exist within the United States of America. I'm talking like, oh, I'm sorry. Are you taking your money away? Are you taking your assets away, dude? They saying on X that Al Jazeera was paying you on the low. Next time, watch out before you come for the beanie club. Al Jazeera was paying me on the low. I wish, dude. I freaking wish, dog. What the f? I don't know if these guys understand this or not, but no, I'm not being paid by Al Jazeera. I wish I was, and I would stand by that decision regardless, because they do phenomenal work in terms of covering the genocide in Gaza. Anyway, let's get back to it.
America from all over the world. They're coming in at levels that no.
He's joking. No, I know. I did work for a company that turned into Al Jazeera. I mean, Al Gore literally sold current media to Al Jazeera, like the TV channel. And a lot of the employees, many of which were my coworkers, then ended up working for Al Jazeera Plus and AJ America. It's also a very good company in general. I'm a straight up fan.
Nobody's ever seen. They're coming.
Just don't ask him about, Qatar related politics.
From prisons. They're allowing prisoners to come out of all countries. They had almost 180 countries represented over the last number of months. 180. Most people don't.
Anyway, we were talking about, by the way, that was Connor. He was joking. But the thing that I was going to talk about is like, we are the American government. Okay. We are the American government. The reality of the matter is there are many different ways that you can force to pay their taxes. Okay. Strip them of their assets, seize it, arrest them for tax evasion. No. Stop trying to get me to vote for Kamala. Definitely a top 10 use of the without evidence crutch. Former President Donald Trump, in a speech Thursday to Jewish Republicans, repeatedly denigrated Jewish Americans who vote for Democrats and warned without evidence that Israel will no longer exist if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes president. Oh, one can only wish, dude. Kamala Harris will dismantle the Zionist entity piece by piece. You can say bye-bye to the apartheid. That's what they're calling it, folks. I've learned a lot. Couldn't the government just say, we're going to sanction you if you try to evade your taxes and engage in capital flight? Yes. You said you would get a tour bus the door knock for Harris, right? I did say that, except Kamala Harris did not say that. If she did, I would.
Don't know that you have that many countries. They're emptying out their prisons and jails. They're emptying out their mental institutions and insane asylums. They're emptying out the sickest people, and they're emptying all into the United States. And you said it better than anybody. More terrorists have come into the United States in the last 3 years than I think probably 50 years. There's never been anything like it. These people are so bad. They're so dangerous. What they've done to our country is they're destroying our country, and we can't let this happen. If they won, you'd have not 20 million, you'll have 100 million people. You won't have Social Security, you won't have Medicare, you won't have anything. Already, if you take a look at the numbers, they're filling up and loading up Social Security, Medicare with illegal immigrants that have come into our country, many of them from jails and many of them from very bad places. And we're not going to destroy our country, Sean.
I'm going to play Kamala Harris and the comments that she has made about the border, because I think this is important. I want to play her in her own words about this. You're right. We have people, almost 11 million plus. We don't know how many gotaways there are. We have hundreds of known terrorists that have entered the country. We don't know what countries they've come from. We're allowing people in. They've come in from Iran, Syria, Egypt, Afghanistan, China, tens and tens of thousands, Russia, Venezuela. I don't think they're coming here because they want a better life, as maybe some other people are. And we know nothing about them. We haven't vetted them. I scroll the names often on this show of people that have been murdered, people that have been raped, people victims of violent crime. And this is all happening by unvetted Harris Biden illegal immigrants. What is your, well, I can play your tape. I'll play that maybe after your answer, but what is your reaction to you've spoken to some of the families of loved ones.
I said at the beginning, I said, when I heard they were going to have open borders, they want open borders. She wants open borders. Now she's all of a sudden saying, oh, I think we'll close the borders. She was the border czar, whether you like it or not. But even if you don't want to use that term, she was in charge of the border. It's the worst border in the history of the world, not just here. There's never been a country that allowed 21 million people to come in over a 3-year period. There's never been. And 21 million people, many of whom are from prisons, many of whom are murderers and drug dealers and child traffickers. And by the way, women traffickers. You know, women trafficking is the biggest, and they're traffickers in women. And they're coming in now, and they're putting them in our Social Security accounts, and they're putting them in our Medicare. And just one thing, if you take a look over the last week, I said this was going to happen, and it's happening. Because these people are tougher than our criminals. Our criminals are nice people by comparison. That's the only good thing. We're showing how nice our criminals are.
What the fuck?
They came from 22 people recently came from the Congo in Africa. Where do you come from? Prison. What did you do?
It's showing how nice our prisoners are. It's showing how nice our criminals are. It's such a funny, dude. What are you saying, dude? Like he's dude, he literally is just like two things. One, also Jason from Vancouver, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Two things. One, like I do legitimately now believe firmly that when he says asylum seekers, I think he means like insane asylum. And two, I also think he meant like when he talked about like black jobs, he was being a racist. He was like talking about crime. He's like, they're coming to steal the black jobs, which I believe are crimes. Criminal jobs. They're stealing jobs from our domestic criminals. Okay? I think that's what he's talking about. Straight up.
We refuse to say, we're letting everybody in. We're letting everybody in. Take a look at Aurora in Colorado, where Venezuelans are taking over the whole town. They're taking over buildings, the whole town. And the sheriff, who can blame them? I mean, they have AK-47s. You saw it the other day. They're knocking down doors and occupying apartments of people. The people are petrified, and it's getting...
By the way, as I called it yesterday or 2 days ago, when I actually covered the Aurora situation, when I talked about the misinformation, and I was right. That YouTube video, it's an incredibly viral story. An incredibly viral story. 84,000 views. Ain't nobody wants to hear the truth. Okay? Remember when I told you like it's barely going to crack 100K? That's it. That's it. Nobody wants to hear what the correct situation is. They just want a narrative that corresponds to their biases. So the Venezuelan gangs taking over Colorado apartment buildings. Story appears to have been fabricated by a slumlord trying to wiggle out of a building court. With the help of a crisis PR agency specializing in cancel culture, can't make this stuff up. Yeah, I mean, we covered this, yes. I covered this exact story that Rebecca Burns is posting from Westward. 4 linked to Venezuelan gang arrested at Arapahoe County apartment. I don't know if you know this, but 0 people said there are no gang members. Okay? Like no one. But he got a point. Wouldn't you agree that there's a spike in crime after mass immigration? Those two have to be connected. No, you idiot. Crime is lower than it has been historically. You dumbass! There's a spike in mass immigration and crime is lower than it's ever been. Oh. My grandma asked about the Venezuela story the other day. I was able to sift through all the misinfo she heard because of your coverage. Yep. That's why I do what I do. Can you chill out? No, man, I can't. Because it's like dealing with flat earthers, dude. Okay? It's like dealing with flat earthers every single goddamn day. 8 hours a day.
Getting worse and worse. You look at New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and now you look at all over the place. You take a look at Iowa, Idaho, places that never.
Colorado law firm reports Venezuelan gang is a stranglehold on apartments. Takeover began in 2023. It's weird because the criminal prosecution from the municipality came in 2020. So I guess the criminal takeover came after. The court process extends all the way back to 2020, though. So are the Venezuelan migrants time travelers? Is that what they did? Do they have a time traveling gun?
Never had the problem. They're pouring in 21 million people. That's bigger than New York. And we have to stop it. And we have to do the largest deportation in the history of.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here. Now, you just.
It's crazy because it's just completely made up. The crime narrative being tacked on to migrants is a complete fabrication. Complete fabrication. And when there's no actual counter narrative that literally explains the truth, you have a whole bunch of dudes cackling for mass deportation and concentration camps. And the Democrats are like, we'll just do concentration camp light.
Heard Kamala Harris, our country's failed borders are talking about.
Oh my God. Okay. Let's talk about Russia. Let's talk about some fun stories.